Welcome back, everybody. This is ITR Super Show. Can't even say it. We got the Catch Encounter and the Boxing Shop crews, Ray and Jack. What's good, fellas?
What's up? What's up?
We're here, man.
Here.
I don't know. Are you guys gonna be on this Friday night, Jack?
I'm not sure. We got to figure that out, but I do not know at the moment right now.
Cool. Well, you see, that's what this kind of show is here. That's what this show is for. Hold on, give me 1 second. I have our show and my TV in the background, so I'm gonna have to turn that off because actually it's not even on the background. I don't want it to
We're
come up
looking
on
a
here.
whole lot like Catch Encounter. We're looking a whole lot like Catch Encounter.
No, yeah, right.
With all the technical issues. You take over
doing
real
your
quick,
best.
Jack.
You doing your best Nibs impersonation, bro?
Nah, never that.
I don't know if that we've been taking care of business recently. I know that, but yeah, I guess I'll take over real quick. I know we had some fights last weekend. We had obviously the Showtime pay-per-view. So I guess Ray, the first thing before we get into any of the fights is what are your thoughts on it being just Showtime's last ever pay-per-view? It seems like it could be last weekend. It seems like they're looking to get into something else, but it might not be. Showtime might be an Amazon or something else for pay-per-views next year.
Yeah, it just still doesn't seem like. I guess I'm just holding out hope, but I don't know. I guess I would hope for like a bigger grand finale, maybe like more respect to the sport. Obviously, it's not their last show, right? They got the 16th show. That's Showtime, right?
Morel, yep,
And come on, give me a montage, give me something. They've been around and a player in the sport for too long to kind of just go out the way they did. I think they owe it to the fans, probably the people that work behind the scenes, Showtime Sports. They're gonna be missed, man. And it's just crazy that everything's just up in the air, right? We don't know what we're gonna get. Hopefully, we get something. I think we're talking about fights like we're gonna get them. It's just where are these fights gonna be? Hopefully, I mean that's above my head, but hopefully we know soon, and hopefully Showtime gives boxing the respect it deserves, right? Because boxing gave a lot to Showtime for all these years.
I agree, and I think they're gonna save whatever finale they got for the free show, not the pay-per-view. I think they're gonna give us a nice video package and probably go all out with some old stars that were on their platform at some point or another. And I think they're gonna put together something nice for us. I'm sure.
I mean, do they? Because I would think we'd be getting a better card. Not that it's a bad card, but if we're talking finale, and they could win out bigger than what they're going out in Minnesota. Right? Like I get that there's been a lot of fights there. I get Morel, all that, but I would just think if it's your last and they really wanted to go out, they could have went bigger than what they're giving us.
Yeah, and y'all know me. I love me some David Morrell, so I'm happy that he's on it. But just think about all those names. Remember all those names we've mentioned about guys who are looking to fight. A lot of big names out there too, title fights and stuff. So it is kind of weird that they're not getting a fight on that last card because all those names that we mentioned before.
What was it, like a month ago where there were like rumored fights, right? It was Danny Garcia, Erislandy Lara were supposed to be on one of the card, Keith Thurman and
Stanionis,
Yeah, it's like I felt like that's a card to go out on, and it's kind of lackluster. I mean, Morel, arguably he could be the best fighter in the sport, but just that big box office, I'm not feeling it.
And then even like the opener will be cool. We get Ryo and Colbert, the rematch. That's a fight that we've all been looking forward to. And then like Julio Cesar Martinez in the co-main, kind of a weird spot. He's not even really a PBC guy. I don't know how he ended up in that spot, but going back to what you said earlier too, Ray, I do hope that whether it's on their broadcast or they have a separate thing, I do want to see something like through the years of Showtime or something like that, because they've had a lot of big fights, some of the biggest fights in the history of the sport. And I just hope that they can package something together to kind of reflect that before they dip out.
Yeah. I mean, if you compare it to HBO's last program, their last card wasn't good at all. I don't even remember who was. I know the main event was Clarissa Shields, but that card was not very entertaining. So Showtime is actually doing better than HBO in that aspect, I would say.
Yeah, I would hope just maybe Espinosa has addresses it. You know, maybe they give him a few minutes to talk, or a couple minutes, right? Just something, right? Just as a fan, and you know, this is kind of catching. Yeah, I think we're tuned in to the sport, but unless you're really tuned in, do you even know that this is the last Showtime show? You know, for like the true casual, like they're flipping channel. Oh, watch boxing. Like, come on, man. Like, they owe boxing more than what they're giving it.
I think, I mean, even Showtime's affiliated with CBS. CBS could have at least put out some headlines, like outside of like the boxing world. You know what I mean? Do we even know that Showtime is no longer going to have boxing? Like, if I'm a casual fan, do I know that at all? As you mentioned, Ray, like they're not pushing that out there. So it's, I mean, at the end of the day, we're always fighting to keep our sport on top, and this is it's a big hit for us. You know, we're as fans, because we're all fans at the end of the day, no matter what our position is in the sport. You know, we want the sport to be treated with respect. So at the end of the day, too. So we're hoping it lands on his feet. Yeah,
where Showtime's I mean, they have historic matches that took place, right, in boxing history on. I mean, you got the Tyson years when Tyson went over. It's just too important to the sport just to be like, all right, let that go. Peace out from Minnesota. Like, come on.
Yeah. We've talked about it a bit too, but it seems like they're the last kind of platform that has a like A+ production value on it too. We talk about all the problems that like the Zone has and shit, and ESPN sometimes has just their telecast, a lot of filler stuff in between, and Showtime seems like it has that HBO model still. So be interested to see wherever they go now too. If they go to an Amazon, does Amazon adapt that kind of model, or do they go more to a DAZN kind of style? And I want to see how that. I hope that the way Showtime goes about business can kind of be carried on also.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of production, man, I was watching the Hard Knocks, the end season. Bro, their production is crazy. Like, it really, I'm like, dang, man. And they used to have boxing, and that's why we would get such great shows. But yeah, HBO Sports. Oh man, I wish boxing would make it over, because you know the stuff they're able to do. I mean, speaking of Hard Knocks, kind of off topic, but I mean that happened Friday. They have like an amazing show by Tuesday, like the editing, the production, and you just wish some of those resources could get put into the sport that we love so much.
Right. And it's such a random thing too, because like, you know, just football, for example, NFL is so branded with everything from the teams and the players and their jerseys and all that. And and it's so unique. Boxing, you can't really necessarily do that. I mean, you can, but I mean, there's so many moving parts associated with it all. It's a mess of a sport, but goddamn, do we love it? You know what I mean?
100%.
All right, Mr. Jack, take us into the untelevised portion of the David Benavidez card, and then we'll, or do
we want to get right to the main? We want to work backwards. Look, Jesus has some thoughts in the comments already.
Yeah, we can start with that because we can address Jesus's comments on it. First of all, salute to everybody in the chat. I want to say before we get into it, I mean, you could pick apart little things, but I think if he was all of these things right here, I mean, you could say in spots he does some of these things, but guys like Caleb Plant and Demetrius Andrade, I think would have been able to beat him. So I think that he's somebody who he doesn't get enough credit, I think, even for his defense. I think he blocks a lot of shots in the high guard. And I just think that it seems kind of like Matias, which we'll get into later on. It's easy to kind of say, oh, these flaws, this and that. But once you're in there in the ring with him, I think it's a lot harder to kind of exploit those kind of flaws. So I just wanted to touch on that before we get into the fight in general.
And that's a good point too, Pugilist Zine. He does do everything wrong but lose. So hey, there's always that argument too.
So yeah, let's talk about the fight, I guess, before we get into all that. What'd y'all think of it? Go exactly like y'all thought, or because it started out, Andrade had what? We'll give him like three good rounds, two good rounds before it kind of went south.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jack. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I gave Andrade the first 2 rounds. I thought the 3rd round he could have won too. And I even thought he was doing good work in the 4th round until he got caught. But clearly, just once he got caught, it was just his legs were never able to recover. I just noticed, even though he was doing good work early in the fight, it seemed like he kind of was being rushed. Like David forced him to fight at a pace he wasn't comfortable fighting. It almost seemed like he fought a 12-round fight in those first 4 rounds. And I just don't think his gas tank they said he rehydrated to 190 also. I don't think that helps out his gas tank for a guy whose best days were at 54. But at the end of the day, no matter what he rehydrated to, even if he came in lighter, maybe he would have been able to survive a bit longer. But it was just David's night. David was just too big, too strong, too fast, and he's just Mexican Monster is a bad man, that's for sure.
Yeah, I did see Rozier kind of taking offense, I guess, to people saying that Andre gassed. And he was saying that I guess they were happy with the shape that he was in. David is pretty much just that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like David, obviously, I think he's looked the best he's ever looked. But is it the opponents, right? Because like we have Plant, we have Andre. I feel like he let Andre touch them, and David knew he could have his way, and I think he found that out early. And yeah, I mean, David looks great, but past 2 fights where he's looked his best, there's kind of really been nothing coming back that he's had to worry about. And I think for his style, shoot, you could look like the best fighter ever. With his, what makes him good, going against someone that can't hurt him, you know, I don't know if we're maybe getting too high on him, right? Obviously, it's building up the fight because you have obviously the Canelo debate, but yeah, I mean, what is it? The fighters, right? Because you know, Andre. I mean, go ahead, Felix.
I will say this: a lot of fighters, you know, aggressive fighters, they always get called out or, you know, exploited for not being able to fight a boxer. The one thing I like about David is he's shown just this year that style doesn't pose a problem for him at all. And really no other style has posed a problem for him before too. So that nickname is definitely fitting. But now I want to see him in there with somebody like a David Morrell who can, you know, fire back with him and, you know, trade shots. Hey, look who joined the building.
Hey.
It's good, baby.
What's up, man?
We got Catching Connor in the building. There we go.
Yeah.
We're talking. Go ahead. Go.
No, we're talking the David Benavidez fight, and yeah, I think David's doing exactly what he needs to do. In my mind, you know, I'm just kind of looking, and I'm like, man, and I'm a Canelo guy. I'm like, was Canelo right? Like, was he not just talking? Did he really think, hey, Andre, you're a horrible fighter, man? And did he see that, you know? And are we maybe moving Benavidez up too high, right? Because I see people say pound for pound, whatever. I mean, that's that give and that take. And I think he's doing what he needs to do. And especially he's doing it in an entertaining way. Where whether win or lose, that type of style, I'm going to want to see. So, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the win. I guess there's just questions. And questions are good because that's what makes us want to see him against other people.
Yeah. The one thing I wonder with that, obviously Canelo and Andre have had the history going back and forth a little bit at that press conference. And then when Canelo was asked about this fight, he said that he thought it was like a 50-50 fight. So was that him just being aggravated with the reporters, keeping asking him about Benavidez and trying to just get him away from him? It could have been that, but I think he also saw it as kind of a competitive fight. And I do see, I mean, I'm someone who's not to say I'm a huge Canelo fan, but I mean, I still respect his game and stuff. But I do think when people say that, oh, I don't know if we're going to get that fight next year, I still do think we get that fight next year. I think that Canelo, he's looking and seeing what everybody's saying, and he's realizing that, you know what, like, if this is the guy you guys want me to fight, I'm going to fight him. So I do think maybe it's not in May, but I do think by September of next year, I do think that that's the fight we have to see.
I think it's a guarantee.
It's all going to be money.
Yeah.
This fight is down to money. Like, unless there's a bigger money fight, you got to make Benavidez. That's the way it is. Yeah,
and I mean, Canelo signed, right? Like, the writing's on the wall. He signed a 3-fight deal, right, with PBC. You would think, obviously, he got the soft touch first. I hope it happens in May, right? Is that me just hoping that it happens in May, and then if it's close, we get a rematch, and that's his 3 fights? Because Canelo really doesn't have many options.
No.
I see people getting mad saying, "Oh, he's gonna fight Munguia in May." I don't know where that came from. I can't see Canelo signing with PBC and then fighting a non-PBC fighter, especially a Golden Boy fighter with DAZN. Like I don't know where that came from, but I can't see that happening. So I'm like, nah. If anything, maybe the Charlo. I don't know. But you got to look at who's with PBC. I don't think PBC is gonna contract Canelo out to fight anybody out, right? Like if they gave him a 3-fight deal, they're gonna take advantage of that. And why wouldn't they keep that in-house? So I think the fight happens for sure. I think that's part of the whole 3-fight deal. Does it happen in May? I would say yes. Because what other options are there? I mean, he could say maybe Canelo says, "Hey, Benavidez, you fight Morrell, and then I'll fight you in September." But then what does that give Canelo for May? Charlo? That's basically all there is, right?
Yeah, and I don't think for him it might not look good to say, okay, you go fight Morrell and I'll fight Jermall Charlo, who just went 10 rounds with Jose Benavidez too, or I fight Munguia. So I do think that I agree with you. I've seen Munguia's name thrown around a lot, but I just don't know with him being tied with Golden Boy. Number one, I don't think Canelo's going to do work with Oscar. Number two, he's already signed with PBC, so that's been thrown around a lot, but I'm not sure how realistic that is. And it's funny because we talk about guys earning shots, this and that. Munguia hasn't done anything to earn that shot either. So if there's one guy that it would be a fun fight. It would be a cool fight. It would be a cool build-up, but he ain't earned that shot. So I'd be okay with that fight not happening.
And I would say even like if he's going to fight someone not with PBC, which I don't see happening. I think this is a completely in-house fight. But like you said, Jack, I don't think he's working with Golden Boy. If anything, I feel like it'd have more credibility if they were saying, "Oh, he's going to fight Berlanga," because at least he has a relationship with Eddie Hearn that seemed to, not end on good, or I guess like end on good terms. I can see that more. So that's why I don't know where this Munguia thing came from. I don't see that happening. I'm willing to bet whatever that doesn't happen in me.
Hey, if it's Berlanga, this is never going to happen. We'll just start this out by saying it, but just imagine how big of an upset that would be if Berlanga got the Canelo fight and pulled that off. Would that be the biggest upset in sports history?
It'd be the biggest murder in sports history. Berlanga has absolutely no chin. If they did give him that fight, it'd be the end of his career, which might actually do us all a little bit of justice. So maybe we should want that fight to happen. That way we don't have to watch Berlanga stink up the joint for the next 10 years. That's just me. But fellas, I just wanted to hop on real quick. I got to go back and send these reports, you know what I'm saying? But, Ketchum County had to come in the building. You know what I'm saying? Mr. I told you so, Nibs 520. Felix, go see your man Ray about my shots, bro. All right,
got you, bro.
Going back to that, man, I think that 3-fight deal was done for a reason. I think it's Benavidez. I want to say it's Benavidez next because, like, we know Canelo has an ego, right? Like Jack said, Canelo hears and sees basically everything. If he comes out and I'll give him Charlo, whatever. I think maybe that was the plan originally. I don't know, but it's like he's gonna get a lot of heat for that.
But there's still the Crawford fight, which Canelo's not pushing for, but Bud is. So what do you guys think about that one?
You're muted, Jack.
I mean, I think Bud's the best fighter in the world. I thought that he's, for the past 2 years, has been pound for pound number one, even when he didn't have the resume. But I mean, bro, I just think he's too small. I mean, I think the skills would be able to get him there. But I mean, we saw what Canelo did with Charlo, and I know Bud's a better fighter than Jermall. I just think when Canelo gets in there, he starts hitting those arms, hitting those shoulders, hitting the body. It's just going to be hard for his skill. I think Bud is the best fighter in the world. We still got weight classes for a reason, and jumping up 21 pounds and not taking the time. If he had a fight at 54, 2 fights at 60, we're talking 2 years down the road, maybe. That's just a tough ask. And I think the world of Bud, but to go up and fight him right now.
It's crazy because that's what he's been vocal about that. That's what he wants.
Yeah, I heard him. It might have been at this fight this past weekend. He said Canelo and Spence. I think he said a Spence rematch or Canelo. Those are like the 2 fights. Yeah. Now I could see something like that happening for May, right? Because we're talking 3 fights, and if Canelo does that, yeah, there'll be a lot of pushback from boxing fans, right? But the casual fans that just saw Terrence Crawford do what he did to Spence, the people that listen to Terrence Crawford on, all the media outlets that he hit, right? He transcends just boxing media. He's on the Breakfast Club, he's on Sway or whatever. I could see that fight being okay, right? So does Canelo do that in May? And, we won't like it, but hey, Morrell, Benavidez, I'll fight the winner of you. I could see something like that happening.
It could be. I would love to see the Morrell Benavidez fight. I think it's a tough ask to tell Benavidez to go fight him. Just so high risk. I mean, Morrell beats if Benavidez beats Morrell, we'll know how great of a win that is. A lot of people would just say, you beat a dude with 9 fights. Congratulations. Wouldn't give much stock to it. I think if you're going to order the Benavidez and Crawford fights, I think you should do the Benavidez fight first, because if Canelo ever loses to Bud, I don't think you could then make the Benavidez fight afterwards. But let's say Canelo fights Benavidez in May. Even if Canelo were to lose that fight, and if he'd probably want a rematch, but even if you don't, you could lose to Benavidez and then still make the Crawford fight afterwards. So I think if they're going to order those fights, it might be better to go with that, because you could still sell and get 2 big fights out of Canelo, even if he loses the first one.
I mean, it's a business, right? And they're going to do – PBC has Canelo for 2 more fights. I think they're going to do what they can to maximize their investment, right? They paid him a lot. Like, they're not going to shortchange themselves. But I do feel like there are less options for Canelo than there are for Benavidez, right? Because Benavidez, he could go up to 75, I think, easy. And he could fight Bivol, or he could fight Beterbiev. Like, to me, David Benavidez has more options, and Canelo's not cornered because he's still face of boxing, biggest name. But there's not much that we're gonna accept as hardcore boxing fans from Canelo, right? Like, who's he gonna fight? He can't fight Andrade. Who's there at 168 that he can fight? He's already cleaned it out. Does he go back to the Bivol? I don't know, but I don't want to say he's cornered, because that feels like, he's food. But I just feel like he's done so much, there's less for him out there.
Yeah, exactly. There's just not many other options out there. And I think the Benavidez fight is the clear number 1 fight that we want, that even it attracts the casual fans. And talk about Tank and Ryan getting to 1 million pay-per-view buys. I think that fight would get to 1 million pay-per-view buys. Would be a huge commercial success too. And to me, that gives me kind of vibes of this generation's like Chavez de la Hoya, when you have the older, more established champion who's in their mid-30s now, and you have the young, up-and-coming, faster guy moving up in weight. Or it would be the other way around, because obviously Oscar moved up in weight. But you have the younger guy against the older guy, the Mexican-American against the Mexican. So I think that there's a lot of parallels to that fight also.
And, in addition to all that, I think Canelo presents something that David hasn't faced, right? Like we've seen David walk down. We saw him pretty much bully Andre. He made Andre throw punches and he ate them. Mm-hmm. I don't think you eat Canelo punches like that. And that's the question, right? And Canelo, yeah, he is older, but he's not old. He's 33. Mm-hmm. Probably his last fight, he looked the best he had looked in years, maybe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, that's the fight. I would hope, if it's me, sign them up for May. Give me the rematch in September. That's the fight I want to see. If it is something like a Crawford, where it's kind of like, all right, this gets people excited, I'm fine with that, I guess. But I really want to see Benavidez Canelo May, and I don't think that fight gets much bigger than it is right now.
Yeah, I think now is the right time, and May is the perfect date. But do we want? I mean, I get Cinco de Mayo weekend. There was a reason, but do we want to wait that long, or should we get them in there by March or so? Because I think they'd be ready by March.
They would. I think that they would go Cinco de Mayo at that point. You might as well. I think Canelo's going to be penciled in for a May date and a September date. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's going to be for him.
Those typical dates. Yeah. But I mean,
yeah. Ideally, I want to see these guys fight in 3 months rather than. But I think Canelo's earned that, right? At one point, he was fighting 4 times a year. Hey, if you want to fight May, September, that's fine. If you want to fight February, then all right, fight Munguia. But for the fight I want to see, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not happy about it, but I'm okay waiting May, September. I guess maybe boxing has made me accustomed to waiting for those dates.
Yeah, those are our Super Bowl weekends, basically.
Yeah, but what Ray said too about just that fight is it'll show us a lot about both guys. Where I think for Benavidez, we haven't seen him, like I said, in with a puncher who can get his respect. Even when me and Felix were talking last week about Boo Boo's chances against Benavidez, it wasn't always he could do this and that. It's how long is he going to be able to hold off the onslaught? Because the onslaught was coming no matter what. I thought even his best case scenario would have been having like a Meldrick Taylor Chavez performance where Boo Boo just ended up surviving at the end, basically, like Meldrick Taylor tried to do. That would have been his best case scenario. I think at some point, just like the planned fight, Benavidez was going to get going. You get a guy like Canelo in there where all of a sudden Benavidez is throwing his hands, but Canelo, I think, is going to do a lot. He can slip a shot. He can rip that body. I think the body is going to be a big target for him. And I also wonder, how does Canelo deal with the pace of Benavidez and the pressure? Because if he's not able to hurt Benavidez, which if he gets him with a good shot, both those guys are going to be able to hurt each other. But Canelo's always been great at his pace. And when a guy kind of speeds up the pace a bit, he doesn't like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see, one, how David deals with the counterpunching of Canelo and the firepower coming back, and then how Canelo deals with David. Because if David starts to get going, it's going to be hard for him to do anything with David.
Once he gets going, it's crazy. Like, as a Canelo fan, I'm a Canelo fan, right? I'm a boxing fan. I'm a Canelo fan. I'm thinking, like, man, once David gets going like that, what does Canelo do, right? And it's no secret, 10, 11, 12, Canelo, he's been fading. I don't know if you can fade against David Benavidez, right? So that's why it makes that fight so interesting. Does Canelo go out right away strong and try to really hurt him, get him out of there? Does he kind of pace himself so he isn't food at the end? Man, I don't know. That's why I want to see that fight. That's why we're talking about it, right? But I do want to.
I'm definitely picking in that fight. Just, I know we haven't got to predictions or anything like that yet, but I'm gonna definitely rock with Benavidez for those reasons that you mentioned too, along with his youth and his hunger and his desire to really want that fight. I think if this was a little earlier in Canelo's career, where the hunger and passion was there a little bit stronger than it is now, maybe it would probably be a little bit of a different story. But I think David wants it too much, and with his size and his skill and his advantages, I think he's definitely gonna beat Canelo for sure.
Yeah, and for me, you go ahead. I was gonna say, I think the hunger and the passion is still there for Canelo. I think that maybe he didn't get up for the Ryder fight or the Golovkin fight, but I think you get a fight like this, I think you would see him and he would get up for this fight. He understands how important it is. Like I said, the shades of Chavez de la Hoya. I think he understands. And Ray, you said this before too. Think about all those guys, the Barrera, the Morales, those guys all sided with Benavidez. That's going to only egg him on even more, I think, too. And he's going to want to stick it to all those guys, Chavez, everyone who's counted him out. But I mean, I would pick Benavidez. I think that it's interesting because not that I'm saying Canelo has no shot, but I think that does Canelo wait a bit, like you said, so he doesn't tire out late? But then what if David gets going in the early rounds? It's going to be hard for us. So I think the big thing is Canelo. I think he could set up those hooks to the body on David. If he's able to hurt David to the body and slow him down, I could see him getting there. But I think he might have to stop him to win. I just think that David's volume, his size, his activity, even his punch selection. The more you see him, even against Andre, look at the way he was able to place those shots. He's not just throwing a bunch of punches in there inaccurate. The way he's able to place his shots, his punch placement is so precise. And I gotta give him the edge right now. But I do see some people in the chat talking about Morel, Christian, and Billy. I think those guys are huge guys coming up. They're kind of under the radar right now, but I think we all know how good those guys are. But I think that for right now, I think Canelo and Benavidez are the two big names, and I think that that's the fight I'd want to see. But if those two guys were to fight each other, I mean, shoot, sign me up for that without a doubt.
And I know everybody in the chat everybody has their opinion, but I'm gonna say it too. I think David Morrell is the guy at 168. Then Benavidez, then Canelo.
Yeah, and I'll say this. We're talking about David Benavidez's power once he gets going, and I think that's where people forget about Canelo. Bro, he's been in there with Triple G. He's been in there with Bivol, Sergey Kovalev. Yeah, he was older, but he's been in there with real hitters, one punch knockout guys. So shoot, he's got a chin too. Right? Like it, yeah, David Benavidez might be able to do what he wants, but who's to say Canelo doesn't eat that and fire back?
The one thing I'll say about that though is that a lot of those guys that you mentioned that he fought, they're pot shot fighters, and Benavidez throws a lot more combination punches. He strings his shots together.
Yeah, that pace, that pace for sure. But like we said, man, this is what makes that fight interesting.
Yeah,
this is why we want to see it. I hope it happens.
You said it earlier too. This is the test that we want for Benavidez, but it's also kind of the test that we want for Canelo, because we have seen him against dudes like Cotto, Golovkin, all of that, but he hasn't really fought anybody like Benavidez too. So it's a perfect test for them both.
And another thing, let me just keep throwing out reasons why I want to see this. I think Jack said it, like Canelo's aware of everything. Like he understands the history of where he fits, right? And he's trying to put himself in there. He sees the Barreras, Morales. He knows where he wants to get. And then the same thing on David Benavidez's side. I've heard interviews this weekend. Like he's a fan of the sport. He knows what the fans want to see. And I think it was kind of shots at Shakur. And he was saying, like, I could have won this fight without getting hit. But why? Right? Like he said he felt the punch and he thought, all right, that he's stronger than him. He could get him out. So yeah, let me give the fans what they want to see. And so we're both guys understand. We feel it. This should be the topic of basically every pod we do. Self-awareness, right? And just awareness of what's going on. I think Canelo has that. I think David Benavidez has that. And they'll want to show who they are. Not where, like, let me throw it. Yeah, I'm throwing shots at Shakur. Like, yeah, you were just fine getting a win, but nobody wanted to see that. And really, it dropped your stock. Dropped your stock in my eyes. And both of these guys, I feel like, are the opposite of that. Like, they're going to want to not only win, but cement their legacy.
I agree.
Yeah. And speaking on self-awareness and respect and things too, I want to touch on really quick, just the last thing on this fight. Even Demetrius Andrade, obviously a New England guy, lives less than an hour from me. So somebody I've always enjoyed seeing. And I'm one of those guys who I don't have to, everybody doesn't have to go out on their shield. I think that can be kind of exaggerated to a point because these guys are all going home to their family at the end of the day. And these guys have looking for careers and fights going forward. But I think that even a lot of his biggest critics, I think they have to give him respect for even the way he fought. Once shit hit the fan in that fourth round and then that fifth and sixth rounds, yeah, the fight did end up getting stopped, but it got stopped because he was in there willing to still throw his bombs. Now, it didn't end up working, but there are a lot of dudes in there who I think would have folded and would have tried to move a lot more. And he has the capabilities where he could have kind of moved and stunk it out, but he knew he wasn't going to win that way. So he said, you know what, F all that. I'm probably gonna go out and go down at some point, but I'm going to try to take him out in the process. So I just want to give him all the respect in the world for that too.
Yeah, definitely. And that was the thing we talked about it the other night when the fight happened too. He let his nuts hang, bro. And he let it all hang out that last round. And whether it was his corner that said we're gonna stop it or he said I'm done.
Did he quit?
Ask pretty much. I don't know. I don't think he did. I mean, somebody stopped that.
I think someone in the corner did. And I think at the end of the day, that was the right time to stop it too. I think if he had gone out that sixth round, you saw even I think in the fifth round at one point, David landed that like overhand shot and Boo Boo like just let out a huge like sigh and he's backing up. He had never been in a situation like that ever before. It was only going to get worse. So I think that was the perfect time to stop it. And if he ever decided to call it quits too, at the end of the day, people are going to call him a quitter for that. But look what he did in those fourth, fifth, and sixth rounds. And that's the reason it got to that point is because he said, you know what, I'm going to still go out there and keep trying. And then he knew at the end of the day, talk about self-awareness, that it wasn't going his way and he tried everything he could.
And I think quitting in boxing is always going to be harsh, but there's a different way. Like the way
it's different if you like the guy, right? If you're a fan of the guy.
Well, see, not even
boxing's
that.
Like, bro. I'll take the same stance for this, and someone else I don't like, I'm gonna take the other stance. But
see, for me, like
I got you.
When Freitas, because I was a big Freitas fan, huge dude was a beast, man. When he quit against Diego Corrales, though, I didn't really like it the way he did it. Like he got dropped, he got up, he was walking to the ref, and then he just changed his mind. He's like, "No, I'm done." That kind of quitting, I'm not a fan of because you still got your wits about you. You're good. You can go. You just said you're like, "No, I'm good. I'm gonna save it." Which really there's nothing wrong with it because it is your life on the line. You know what I mean? But this is boxing. We're fans. We want to see. But when you have a guy who, he'll just lay it all on the line, go to his corner that round and call it quits, then I'm more okay with that than middle of the round. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I threw that out. I saw a video, and I'm not a lip reader, but I guess, when you have what they say they're saying and then you see it, you think, but they had the video of Andre, and I thought he said, stop it. Like, he looked to his corner, stop it. But like you said, bro. Yeah, like do you? And then it's easy to say, oh, he's a quitter. Whatever. I mean, and then that's where it goes, where a guy you like or a guy you doesn't. Eric Morales is probably top 3 all-time fighter for me. And against Manny Pacquiao, I think it was 3rd fight. He's against the ropes, and he looks at his corner and he goes, kind of shakes his head no, and I'm like, damn, bro, like. But I can't call Eric Morales a quitter, right?
Right.
But if you're looking at it black and white, did he quit? I'll probably still say no, even though he shook his head no. It is who do you want to go to bat for? So yeah, I think Andre, even if he said stop it, it was a smart decision. And like Felix said, hey, he finished the round at least. So,
yeah. And I'm willing to give those guys the benefit of doubt when they fight that way too. Like, the reason he was beaten into submission like that was because he went out on a shield and was going out and still throwing those bunch of punches, which made it worse for him. But he clearly was doing everything he could to still try and win. So I give those guys the benefit of the doubt too.
And it's kind of like, and that's like the Morales thing too. I think Morales is like, bro, this dude's better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this dude's better. And Andre Price, same thing. Like, hey, I'm not gonna beat this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, that's a ongoing boxing debate forever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it is going to always boil down to who do you like, really. Well, we spent almost 40 minutes talking about this fight. We want to go run down the undercard real quick, Jack.
So real quick, I guess we'll touch on. I'll mention real quick, and then you guys can jump in anything. But Jose Benavidez fought Jermall Charlo in the co-main event. I've seen a lot of opinions on just Jermall's performance. To me, I can't lie. I thought he looked pretty. Now, if that was prime Jermall Charlo, I would have said that obviously he wasn't at his best. But I don't want the goalpost to kind of get moved a bit, because even when we were talking to Felix, so just the whole talk about that fight was Benavidez is like Benavidez can beat Jermall. Like, Jermall's looking all this. He's not looking good. Benavidez can really do some damage to him. And we turn out, and if Jermall has a performance like he did in one wide, I want to give him credit. I don't want to backtrack and say, oh, well, he should have knocked him out, this and that, all those things. So I want to give credit where credit's due. I mean, Jose's got a hell of a chin. He kept moving forward, but I thought just Jermall's jab and just he looked a few counter shots he tried to. His timing was a little off, but I think the more rounds that went on, I thought it got better and better. It just sucked to see the post-fight interview. He's still clearly just kind of lost, I guess is the easy way to say it. I mean, he missed the weight. So at that point, I was kind of like, tough time defending this dude anymore. But he's still clearly got a lot going on. I know anytime family and kids are involved, it can definitely be tough and wear on you. And clearly being in the ring helped him out in the moment, I think, when he was in the ring. But I think after the fact, reflect on it, he's still clearly not at peace. So to me, that makes the performance look even better, because he's clearly got a lot going on still, and he was able to go in there against a guy like Jose Benavidez and win basically every round. But what did you guys think? So a lot of people didn't like the performance. Some people did like the performance. I know a lot of people were up and down on it overall.
I thought he gets a passing grade for me, not in a nothing above average, you know what I mean? But he did what he had to do. Obviously there was time off of the sport, ring rust, all that. So I mean, he did what he had to do. He looked good. I don't got really anything bad to say about it. I wasn't fully locked in, but from what I saw, it was typical Charlo. It wasn't his greatest performance, but it was solid. He did what he had to do. And Jose, I mean, that's a dog. Granted, he was a lower weight fighter at one point, but that type of fighter with that type of heart, you can't, take it easy on that type of dude either, or take him for granted either.
Yeah. To me, it was an interesting fight. I know. Going into it, when he missed weight, I thought, man, Charlo's done fighting. Like, I thought he's here for the paycheck. Jose's gonna just go in and win based off being in training camp. So Charlo surprised me, right? And maybe that was just his talent alone, because, man, they talk about his jab, but that jab won the fight. right? And maybe that's just something he could do in his sleep. But so the jab was impressive. But when you really look at the opponent, you know, Benavidez, Jose, yeah, he's a dog for sure. But he was in way over a weight that he should be at. You know, he really, even his style, right? He doesn't have much head movement. He's just right there in front of you. So when you have a smaller guy coming up in weight, and then the guy that was supposed to make that weight was even higher, when Charlo doesn't get him out of there, doesn't really even hurt him. I think he kind of wobbled him maybe early in the fight, but never really in danger of getting him out of there. And Benavidez still in his face at the end of the fight. More questions probably for me. Like, all right, what is left of Charlo? I don't think he earned a Canelo fight, but you know, he said he's willing to fight Jonabek. He said he's never ducked anyone. This is just recent. Yeah, I'm glad he's back in the ring, but that fight really showed me nothing. Props to Benavidez for taking that fight even after Charlo blew the weight. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure he got paid for it. I'm sure they negotiated on the back end for taking that fight, and hopefully he negotiated a bigger fight. At a more natural weight class for him. But at the end of the day, it was entertaining to me. I think the bad blood showed they were still talking there right in front of each other. But as for fighters, there's still a lot of questions for Charlo, man. I don't think he's that guy for sure.
No, and I can say that because I agree with that. I can say that I was impressed with his performance based on what we thought about going in. But I can also say that I'm not sitting here, and I don't think that he beat any of those top guys at 168. And I don't think that he's even going to – he talks about going back down to 160. But if he could have made 163 and he came in at 166, I have a hard time seeing him even make 160 going forward. So the Adames fight is there. That would be the most realistic fight at 60, but I think he's up at 68. He's at 68. I know Boo Boo didn't look great against Benavidez, but I would take Boo Boo to beat Jermall. I would take Caleb Plant probably right now to beat Jermall too. I think at his best, he can give those guys great fights, but it's just hard to say right now what version of him we'll get for those kind of fights. So,
and when have we seen Charlo that would beat these guys, right? Mm-hmm. If anything, yeah, line up, I think Plant or Andrade are the easy fights to make. Okay, I have some interest in seeing.
Yeah. He's got history with both of those guys too in different points, so it would be interesting.
And we're looking at Quan Chi, bro. When did Benavidez Sr. say that? Because that's a crazy quote.
I think he's making that up because
I'm just looking at these comments; they're crazy. But yeah, Charlo, good to see him back in the ring, but I feel there's tons of questions. At least for his, I mean, hey, he's saying he mentioned these guys. He didn't act like these like Jonabek didn't exist. He says he's never ducked anybody and he's willing to fight these guys. I think the natural fight for him would be Canelo or Andrade, and kind of show us more, right? Because you know, going 12 or 10 with Benavidez, Jose Benavidez, that didn't show me much, man. And Jose Benavidez was still all up in your grill, still throwing. You know, he was outgunned because he's smaller, but he was willing to go to war with you. So, you know, more still props to Jose Benavidez, right? And if he wants another fight at a more natural weight class, 54 or 60, I hope he negotiated that with PBC for agreeing to go along with the fight with Charlo missing the weight, right? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But
I think the easy fix for that too would be if Jermall does, because I think he'll stay at 68, is if Adames is a WBC interim champion, if he becomes full champion, I think having him fight Jose Benavidez, even if I would pick Adames to win that fight, that's not a fight that I'd be going back and forth saying, oh, can Jose win that fight? Maybe not, but I think he's earned the shot that if Adames is going to make a title defense, I think that's a smooth thing that I think they could do for him.
And that's what I mean. I think he earned it, and hopefully he negotiated, because he kept that card going, right? Because he's already fighting the bigger guy. That guy blows the weight, and he still agreed. Mm-hmm. And I know they said Charlo had to weigh a certain amount the next day. I never heard if he made that weight or not. But, you know, hopefully they take care of him for making that card still go on. It was the co-main of one of the fights that we were looking forward to, and he could have easily said, no, I'm not doing that. And I don't think anybody would have thought less of him. So props to him. And props to Charlo for getting in the ring. Because, Felix, we saw Charlo in what, March?
Yeah.
And I didn't think that guy was fighting. Not November soon, but I didn't think he was fighting any time.
No time soon. Yeah, exactly. And you guys could watch the interview on our page, and it was heavily edited. But Charlo was not in the best state at that time. After the show's over, go back and watch the interview on the channel, and you'll kind of see a little bit of it. But yeah, being around him in person, seeing him, I think it was the night before, the night after, seen him in the casino too, and it's just dudes. I can't even say what the problem is that he's having. It's not like he's battling an alcohol addiction, I don't think, but I know he's living like the party lifestyle.
You would have saw me that Saturday night or Friday night. You probably could be saying the same, but hey, it is what it is.
Hey, Vegas gets crazy, man.
The one thing it does show about these guys in the elite level, we've seen it with Teofimo, and Teofimo obviously has had the dynamite performances after, but even with Jermall, when a lot of the talk was, Jose is going to give him problems. And Jose, I think, made him uncomfortable at times, but I don't think there was never a doubt in there that Jose was going to win the fight. And it just shows that for a lot of these guys, no matter how much shit kind of goes on in their personal lives, someone like Jermall, as you said, Ray, he'll still be able to stick that jab out there for 10 rounds no matter what. And I think that just showed that the level that those guys are at still, no matter what they have going on. Yeah, Benavidez was a smaller guy. Yeah, I think if this was clearly Jermall a few years ago, he would have, I'm sure, probably got him out of there. But for him to even have that performance, even if it still leaves us with questions going forward about 168, shows that these guys can still do their thing no matter kind of what's going on. Maybe not at the highest of levels, but at a high enough level.
I think that's what we talked about too last week on Friday, Jack, is just the natural skill of Charlo should get him through this fight. And the size, all the advantages that he had over Jose is what kind of just took him to the end of that. How he does with the other top level fighters of that division is going to be interesting. Now this is a good get back in shape, see how you feel type of fight, but now it's serious. No more long layoffs. Let's get in there and let's do what you got to do, man.
I mean, they say, right? I mean, maybe it's overused, but there's levels. And
right.
Yeah. Like, he can look bad or whatever, but hey, he's beating 99.9% of everybody out there, right? Like, let's not take away from Jose Benavidez, right? Like, he was, an amateur prodigy. Even, what does he have? 2 losses, 3 losses now, maybe? And it's to, like, Crawford and Danny Garcia. World champions, right? This isn't some bum, right?
Not at all.
The guy that's lost to world champions. I'm gonna say Hall of Famers, right? People might say, "Oh, Danny Garcia's no Hall of Fame." He's a Hall of Famer. So, and Charlo was able to go in there and win a fight after not being in the ring for however long. And like me, I didn't think he would be in the ring again this year. So.
I see Gritty in the chat too. Shout out to you, Gritty. He said he gave away $50 on Jose. But we've all been there and done that, taking an underdog, and it hasn't worked out. But the value, I think, was there for sure. That plus 600 or whatever it was. I always thought Maul would win, but I mean, for that value, there were too many unknowns going in that it was a short thing.
Jose was on my parlays, bro. That was the kicker. I got them all right by him.
And when it's like that, it's really hard to not drop money on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The payout is just so tempting.
The last thing I want to say about this fight is I've seen it a few different fights, but later on in that fight, they were telling the guys to stop talking. Why do they do that in these fights? It's like, bro, like they're in there fighting. Like if someone wants to talk some shit, I don't see why that's like. I've seen it. I don't know if it was UFC before or a few other. It's not the first time I've seen it. But what do you guys think about just the refs telling the guys to stop talking? I always find that kind of weird. It's like they're still in there doing their thing. Like
I want to tell the ref to stop talking, right? As long as they're still fighting, which in this fight they were, right? Like they're still right in each other talking. That's cool. Now, I mean, obviously, if they have their hands down and it's just a conversation, like, all right, yeah, you're here to fight.
They're not running around the ring either. They're going at it, yeah.
Yeah, these guys were talking while fighting. Like, bro, this is entertainment. Like
that's a part of the fight. They're verbally fighting now too.
The buildup of this fight, like,
right?
I wanted to see that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think the refs kind of, and obviously they're in there close. Maybe they think it's something different than what we're seeing. But yeah, no, I don't like that, man. Let them talk. As long as they're fighting and talking, I'm cool with that. Which these guys, they were kind of in each other's chests. So yeah, I thought that was, it wasn't warranted.
There was a
this
fight early on in Floyd Mayweather's career. I forgot who it was against. Something happened where they just kind of got that little heated moment where they're like exchanging like crazy shots on each other. The referee was Vic Draculich. I'll never forget that because he like immediately, because they got heated and they were like kind of scrapping like crazy for a second. Vic gets in the middle and was like, "Calm down, guys, bro. It's a fight. Come on, like they're fighting emotionally now. Who cares? Let them fight."
Yeah.
Hey, can we remove Bean from the chat? Like, come on, bro. Sportsmanship is a fight, man. Come on, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, I know he's been trolling Ray for like the whole year, but hey, shout out to Quan Chi. Happy birthday, man. Thanks for
happy birthday, Quan.
It's a happy birthday. But it was, speaking of sportsmanship, it was, even after all that shit talking, just it shows that the sport of boxing is still a sport. The fact that those two dudes were kind of giving respect at the end of the fight, I didn't see that. It was like kind of like half credit, but it was still interesting to see. But I do think that, like you guys said, talking is a part of fighting. Let's say if two dudes are gonna fight in the street, they're gonna like, it starts from talking. Right. They're gonna be talking what like just those things always kind of happen. So I thought it was kind of rough.
And I like to see it, like, bro, if you're landing your best punch on me and you're not hurting me, let me tell you, I'm not losing this fight, but let me tell you, right? What is it, Raging Bull, when he tells him, "But you never drop me," or whatever. Bro, yeah, man, that's a fight, bro. Yeah. Let these dudes talk, especially when there's bad blood. And
right.
As long as it stays a fight, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's just, hey, we're talking and we have no intentions of throwing. No, you guys are here to fight. But there was no reason, I felt, to tell them to chill out or whatever. Stop the talking. Like that, man.
What do you guys?
Come on, show me.
What do you guys in the comments? What do you guys think? Do you guys like trash talking mid-fight, or do you want to save that for pre-fight stuff and post-fight?
I agree with you guys too. I think the ref just didn't want it to get out of hand, but like it gives you for some dope moments when you do have it. Like Ray, remember when like Max Holloway fought Calvin Kattar and he's like talking to the commentary crowd as he's like punching him and saying he's the best boxer in the UFC? Like that stuff is just crazy. That shit is just
or Max Holloway talking to is it Brian Ortega?
Yeah,
right?
That's it.
He's telling them what he had to do. Like, hey, no, bro. Like they're fighting and he's telling them
to block and stuff. Yeah,
he's like, oh, you got to block like this. But they were still right in front of each other fighting. Like, that's part of, bro. It's entertainment at the end of the day for most of them. I mean, it's a sport, but it's still entertainment. So like, let that stuff live. Let it breathe.
I agree. And again, as long as it's still contained, you know what I mean.
I was gonna say, what are you gonna tell you? Should that ref have stopped Mayorga when he told Trinidad to hit him?
Right.
Like, no, bro. He's just talking. He's talking. So yeah, I think we need more of that in the sport. So I didn't like the ref kind of trying to take that away. He says, Bean saying Floyd making Super Bowl predictions. Bro, that's an all-time classic, right? Where he's moving around the ring and he tells them, "No, I got the Patriots."
He picked my Patriots too. I like that. He picked my Patriots. He knew what he was doing with that one for sure.
That was a classic one.
And we've had who was it? I think it was Vibes on here.
Yeah.
And Vibes was telling us how much you could really hear the commentator, which I didn't know. That was news to me. And he was saying that, while he's fighting, he could hear the commentator saying why he's losing. And he's like, "No, but hold up, I'm doing this." So yeah, if a fighter wants to address them, I'm all for it, man.
As long as they still handle their business in the ring, and like I said, as long as it's still contained, that's fine. Let it be what it is.
That's a fact. It's a fight at the end of the day.
Right. What else do we have to cover from last weekend? I mean, we still got the we spent the whole hour on almost.
I mean, we did, but bro, we gotta show some love to that Matias fight.
Yes. Go ahead, take it away.
Bro, to me, that dude, you mentioned it earlier, Jack, and I'm waiting till now to say it, but that dude and Benavidez are very similar.
The
It's
fights
like-
played out kind of the same way.
It's like they're gonna, yeah, you might think you have them for 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds, but when they decide to turn it on or get it going, bro, good luck. And I think even Matias, all the praise and everything that David gets, well deserved. I think Matias even does that better. I think he's a harder puncher, and I think he's more dangerous. So, that fight kind of was played out like the last few fights we've seen of his, and against an undefeated fighter. We've talked, especially on our show, Felix.
The A show.
Yes, sir. The boxing. I
don't know about that,
but yeah, we've talked about them top rank, kind of looking for the next Puerto Rican fighter. We've seen I forget his name, the dude that's in jail for life, but him,
Verdejo.
We've seen kind of Berlanga, that's Matchroom, but promoted that, or he was top ranked, promoted that way. Bro, the Puerto Rican that everybody should be behind is Subriel Matias. That dude's a monster, right? We talk about David Benavidez, we name him. Matias is a monster, and I think he showed it. Like how do you beat that, right? He takes what you got, and then he goes for the kill, right? Like, no pun, all respect, whatever. But like, bro, he's about that.
Yeah, it's crazy with him too. Is he's now had 5 straight fights that have been stopped in the corner. And I do think a lot of it is, I'm not saying they stop him early. A lot of them is because of what has happened in those rounds. I think a lot of it's also knowing, as you said, what happened with Dadashev and knowing what's also going to come in the later rounds. I think that's what leads into the stoppages more than anything. Ergashev was even at the point where he wasn't even beaten down nearly as much as Andre was. And I think he said he was hit to the body, so his leg went out or something like that. But I think he knew at the end of the day that, look, like you said, I gave him my best shot for 2-3 rounds. He ate him up, and there was nothing he was going to be able to do. You even noticed in like that 3rd round, just how he was able to cut the distance off, and he immediately was right in his chest, and there was nothing Ergashev was able to do about it at all. And I see saying Matias is a tough matchup for Devin. I think it's a tough matchup for anybody. I do think that it would be interesting to see. I think it's interesting to see a guy like a Devin, a Shakur, a Teofimo, those guys who are able to stick the jab on him. I think maybe if you're going to have one style that could maybe give him some problems, it would be that. But we also said that with Benavidez before, and we've seen him go through Plant and Andre too. So no matter who it is, no matter what your skill set is, you might have success for a few rounds, but it's going to be a long-ass 12 rounds. And I think even if you beat him, which is, we've seen it done before, but he got the revenge, and that was also after the Dadashev fight, and he wasn't mentally there, and he knocked the guy out in the rematch. But he's going to be coming no matter what. Even if you win the first 8 rounds, those 9, 10, 11, and 12 are still going to be hell. And I think that it's hard for me to say he beats everybody, but it's also hard for me to say that there's anybody who definitely beats him too. So he's a problem.
Yeah. I don't know what style beats him, right? We've talked about David Benavidez. We spent almost an hour on him, and I'm like, okay, maybe the power, right? Maybe Canelo will say, no, you're not gonna just walk me down. But bro, he's fought. Matias has fought big punchers, right? We kind of see guys unload on him, right? What was the fight before this one? I can't think of dude's name.
Ponce, he came out crazy.
Yeah, and I thought he was gonna get Matias out of there, right? And I was like, oh, and so for him to take that damage and then turn it around and still be the Matias that we're talking about, I don't know what beats him. So, especially 140, we talked earlier, so many names in that. I don't know who beats him, right? And I think Regis is maybe the number 1 guy right now, which Haney has a chance to take. I like Matias' chances against both. Like he's really good.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where if I had to make a pick, I would maybe pick a Devin or Teofimo to beat him if I had to choose. But that's on like a 55-45, and that's not me saying that there's no chance he doesn't knock those 2 dudes out too. It's so hard for me to engage a guy like him because at some point he's going to be able to probably turn it around. It's just no matter what you do, he never wavers. Ponce threw 100 punches in that first round. Ergashev threw probably 70 punches in the first 2 rounds back to back. Matias just sat in that high guard here and there, make you miss, get hit a few, kept coming like nothing even happened. So I think that's a bad dude. It's gonna be hard to beat him no matter who you are.
It's gonna be hard. I think if I had to pick someone, maybe this is just me being a fan. I like Teofimo, right?
Mhm.
I think Teofimo does the best of presenting everything, right? Like he can present the boxing skills, he could present the speed, he's got the power. Him and Matias, I think could shoot. I think that could be an all-time classic type fight. But yeah, you better be ready to fight against him, and don't expect to knock him out right away, right? Like you hit him with your best stuff, and then you're still gonna see big stuff coming back. So 140 is on fire right now, right?
Oh yeah, 140 is where it's at without a
Like
doubt.
where there's a weight class, and we name it. While we're talking, we name over 10 guys in one weight class. That's crazy.
Mhm.
Like, so yeah. But shout out to Matias, man. I mean, he's been impressing me, and he impressed me even more this past weekend.
Yeah, it's so hard because I'm just trying to think about if I were to fight him. Thank God I don't have to worry about that in a real ring. But I mean, it's like, well, do you just kind of stick and move and box? But if you do that, he's probably going to cut the distance to get to eventually. If you go try to knock him out like these guys have tried, well, then you just tire yourself out like Andre did against Benavidez, like Ergashev did, and then he's going to get to you that way too. So it's almost like he's going to get to you no matter what. And you can kind of box a bit, but then you're just kind of dying a slow death in there too. So it's like I said, it's going to take a real disciplined, strong, skilled guy to be able to keep him off not even keep him off for 12 rounds, but just get to 12 rounds and win enough rounds to win a decision against him.
Yeah.
It's going to be somebody really skilled that can really think.
I think Teofimo, man. If anybody, that's where my mind goes. Teofimo.
The way he performed against Josh Taylor,
right.
Yeah, definitely.
And to me, Teofimo's a guy that steps up to the
absolutely level of competition.
Level of competition. So, like, if he knows, hey, this is what it is, I feel like Teofimo has all the attributes to get there. Maybe Tank too. I feel like Tank has to show more, but it's gonna be like that. Like I see Matias beating Regis, man. I also see him beating Devin, and I'm looking forward to their fight 100%. And that fight maybe gives me a different opinion of how their fight against Matias goes. But 140's on fire once again, and Matias. I'm not gonna say stole the show because Benavidez did do his thing, but yeah, definitely put the boxing world, if not the casual world, on notice.
Yeah. Then I want to see a big push for him. Like I want to see him in these main events. I want to see him getting his own shows because even if he's not a huge name yet, there we go. But he's the kind of guy that you need to build him into a household name as much as you can. Because I think he's starting to learn some English more now too. I think that's big for you. Not everyone has to. I know it's a hard language to learn, but he's learning it. So I think that only helps somebody like that. And just with his fighting style, bro, you put some highlight clips of him or you talk about him, you have him on these sports shows and on these talk shows and stuff, like the casual fans, that's exactly what that style is exactly what they're looking for. So I hope they're able to build him up too, because he's got the brand to be a huge star in the sport.
Yes, they're all whoever's promoting. Well, I guess PBC, they're stacking. Like this dude, Puerto Rico has been looking for a star since what? Miguel Cotto. That's going to be the last true star, right? Would y'all say? That's who I would say.
Oh yeah,
they've been looking for a star since him. Then you have this guy, this style, this dude. I mean, well, we don't want to hear it, but like he's a killer, right? Like he literally caught a body in the ring, and it looks like every fight he's going to catch another, right? Like these guys are quitting on their stool before that happens. Like he has everything to be a huge star. I'm just going to reiterate what Jack said. Like this is a guy who there should be some marketing dollars behind because I think he has a story and a style, and he comes from a place that is going to sell.
Agree. And as what you mentioned here earlier, pugilist Zine. I mean, that's what we do here. We scope out the young talent early on, man.
Hey, but put that next comment about pugilist because Lindolfo is my guy, and I throw him out when we mention 140s too. So yeah, that's why we say, look, I mean, he's naming guys that these are probably the lesser known guys at 140 who have the potential to beat the known guys. So yeah, if these fights at 140 get made, or at least over the next couple years, if 140 really plays itself out, we're gonna get some great fights.
Yeah, there's even a fight that I'd be interested to see Matias in. It's not a realistic fight, but Ray, what if he fought your boy Sandor Martin? I mean, I'm sure Matias would win, but that's an interesting style. When we talk about a southpaw, a guy who can move, that would be an interesting one to see how he kind of deals with that too.
I don't know if Sandor Martin's my boy.
Yeah,
but yeah, I've been saying like, yo, Sandor is really good.
Yeah.
He beats my boys, or at least it doesn't make them look good. And you know where Sandor has, you know, beat Mikey, made Teofimo look like people thought Teofimo was done. And like, yeah, shoot, if Matias really that confident, if he could take a style like that out, I mean, he might be. Now we're talking pound for pound. So yeah, I'd love to see it. You know, Sandor doesn't, on paper, and when you talk about him, he doesn't have the most exciting style. He doesn't have that, but I think it'd be great to see how someone of Matisse's caliber handles that. So yeah,
that would be pretty dope to see. I think everybody's a big fan of Subriel right now. It's one of those things where it's just you don't see any weaknesses in him at any moment right now. He's progressing. He's getting better each time out too. What else do we got? Oh, actually, you know what? I'm gonna definitely just address this comment real quick. Where's it at? Hold on. Let me find it. Oh yeah, is the ski mask also merch? It's not merch yet, but stay tuned. At some point in 2024, there will be ITR merch, and you'll be able to support your favorite podcast, The Boxing Shop, or Catch and Counter, whichever one. There'll be merch for all of us, so just stay tuned. Maybe May, June, sometime next year. And yeah, you can rock a Real Ray ski mask as well too. But yeah, I just want to throw it out there. Merch is coming for everybody to buy as well too. You won't be able to own these because that's not our logo. But anything with ITR logo, you can rock that for sure.
Yeah, and I know Felix mentioned both shows. I know most of you guys are here from Catch and Counter, but, you know, give those guys some shine. Buy some of their merch, too. You know, I'm sure they'll appreciate it also. So we're in this together, so I want you guys to support them as well, too. Don't just start buying all our merch once that comes out. So.
No doubt. Squad up. Squad.
Yeah, back to the scheduled program. What do we have? What else is on the
Before we do that, can I do that corny thing where I'm saying like, hey, if you're watching, press that like button. It really helps our algorithm. It really helps us. So if you can, you know, press that. But yeah, I didn't watch the Lamont Roach fight. I heard he won.
Yeah, how was that one, Jack?
I can just touch on that real quick. So, I mean, he won. It was a split decision. I did think he won. I thought it was probably like 8-4, Lamont Roach. The weird thing is that they called a knockdown in the 12th round, and it looked like the shot was definitely behind the head of Hector Garcia. So I don't think it should have been called a knockdown, but looking back at the scorecards, had that not been called a knockdown, it would have actually been a draw. So that gave Lamont Roach the win. So I think if you're a fan of Hector Garcia, you could say, oh, well, without that knockdown, he still has his belt. But to me, I thought Roach won the fight cleanly. So I think it would have been a disservice for it to be a draw. So that makes me end up being cool with the decision. But I had a 4-4 through 8 rounds. I just thought that Lamont Roach really stepped up and kind of took the fight from Hector. Hector was kind of just wasn't pulling the trigger. Is that from the Tank fight? I'm not sure. Just getting stopped the way he was, because we saw him throwing his hands before that. Lamont Roach is not a ton of knockouts, but he's a sharp puncher, and I think hits harder than he gets credit for. So I think you just saw, when you talk about the hunger of a guy who hasn't been a world champion yet, I think you just saw his hunger, and he really kind of dogged it out in those last 3 rounds and beat somebody who we've been high on too. I know, Felix, we were talking about him Friday, but Hector Garcia had a hell of a run last year. Even when he lost to Tank earlier this year, but he won some rounds, and he lost against Tank, but there ain't no shame in that. He moved up in weight for that, and it was probably more competitive than Ryan Garcia was against Tank, you can argue. So, I mean, good win for Lamont Roach. I'm happy he's a world champ now. There's rumors about he might go to Top Rank. He might stay with PBC. He might go elsewhere too, but I'd be interested to see. I hope he gets some more big fights, because he's finally got the title shot that he's earned.
Oh, that was a world title fight?
Yeah, so it was for Hector's title, their WBA real title, not the Reggie title or their interim titles. It was the real deal 130-pound title. So now he's a champ. Navarrete's a champ, Oshaki Foster, and then Cordina. So those are the 4 champs right now.
All I gotta say is, Lamont Roach is food out there, bro.
Mhm.
I thought that was
Right.
hey,
Who's gonna
but,
lose the title first, Lamont Roach or Raleigh?
Lamont, bro.
I think Lamont will fight first, so I think it might be him. Even I know Jermall Herring was out there because Jermall Herring already beat Lamont Roach too. So Jermall's on Twitter saying, "Hey, I'm back now. Want to run that back again too." So it'll be interesting to see where Lamont Roach goes because I think he is a really good fighter, but I think he probably would be if he fights a Foster, a Navarrete, those guys. He would probably be underdogs in those fights. But hey, he's earned the shot to be in there with them.
Yeah.
Oscar Valdez, bro. Get on the phone and make that happen, bro. There's a belt for you to have.
Straight up. Seriously. I would like to see Oscar get a world title again for sure.
It's crazy, man. We talk about world champions, and we always the argument. There's too many. There's really not, right? Like
Really, no.
There's a lot of great fighters that don't become world champions. Shout out my boy Rocky Juarez. Like that, he just can never get one, right? So yeah, Lamont Roach. I'm sure it was your dream growing up, and you accomplished it, man. So 100% props, respect to you.
Yeah,
and also to Hector Garcia, right? Like, because you were never supposed to be in that position anyway,
right?
And you got it, and you parlayed that into a fight with Tank Davis, right? One of the biggest superstars in the sport. So yeah, you always want to see guys win, right? And do good for themselves. So I hate him a lot, but I'm not gonna hate him now.
And that's that alone, like what you said, you like to see guys winning, even them fighting against the Tank Davis, like for Hector, he wasn't supposed to be there. That just being in that ring with him is a win in itself, getting that big paycheck.
Yeah, 100%. Like Boo Boo Andre, right? Like that's a win fighting Benavidez.
Yep.
Right, like he's that's 154 champ, 160. Yeah, he earned it, right? But I think we're all okay saying 168 is not his best weight class. But to go up and he dedicated his life to boxing and that big payday. All right, you earned it. It's gonna be at 168, not the most favorable to you, but you earned this. So, shout out to him.
Yeah, not to go back to him too, but that's what sucks for me, kind of as someone who's been a supporter of him and known guys who have been in camp with him. It sucks that he didn't get this chance at 54 or even at 160, and it took until 168 where Felix, we were saying that he's got the skills, but Benavidez is the younger guy, the stronger guy, the faster guy. Like he had all those advantages too, and give him the credit because I didn't see him having the performance he did, so I don't want to move those goalposts or anything. A fantastic performance. But it does just suck that it took him this long. And I'm a big Boo Boo supporter. I'm not going to sit here and say that were other guys looking the other way? Yes, but I'm not going to say it's all on them too, because he knows he made some business decisions, the Rock Nation, some things that didn't end up working out too. So some's on him, some's on other fighters too, but it just did suck that this is how he went out.
Yeah, he's not out, right? Like,
yeah, not went up, but I mean, just that was his big fight. And I think for a lot of people, they're gonna look and see like, oh, that's all he was cracked up to be and stuff like that. 100%. Yeah.
If you didn't like him, or if you didn't like him while he was beating one of your guys, and you waited 5 years before he finally lost, yeah, you're gonna say that. But hey, man, it's a sport that guys dedicate their whole life to. And if they stay dedicated enough and earn $1 million payday, and hopefully he got more than that, like, hey, props to him, right? Like he did what he had to do.
I'm gonna take like a quick 30 seconds to promote the latest episode of The Fight Life, because it's kind of a good segue, because in this episode you'll see Joseph Rivas. He lives that style. He just dedicated his life not just to boxing but to fighting. He was an MMA fighter, oh God, I can't even pronounce it.
Muay Thai.
Yes, Muay Thai fighter, and now he's boxing. No amateur experience. He's at his 6th or 7th pro fight. But you guys are gonna enjoy this video too. Hearing his story and his journey about going to all these different fighting sports, combat sports. And finding his groove in boxing so far it's been pretty cool. So stay tuned. The episode should be out If not tomorrow, then Friday for sure. But it'll be out this week, and then I'll have a little teaser up on Instagram tomorrow. Back to the schedule program again. Commercial breaks over.
So the only other fight that was anything to me was the Katie Taylor Chantel Cameron fight. What'd y'all think, man? Because to this, I don't even watch female boxing like that. Like, I've been a big man. I criticize it all the time, but what Katie Taylor did to me, bro, amazing. What'd y'all think?
Yeah, just special. I mean, because I was on with Felix. Not to say I counted her out, but I mean, I picked against her in this fight. I thought that Chantel won the first fight probably 6-4, and I thought that she's naturally the bigger woman. She's fresher. She's got all the attributes, abilities. She had all the advantages on her side, like we mentioned Benavidez and other fighters did. So I thought she'd probably win a little wider this time. But man, Katie Taylor's just special. We can have the argument of a lot of people are saying, "Oh, her winning that fight, that proves she's number one pound for pound." And I still think Clarissa Shields is number one pound for pound, but that's not to discredit Katie Taylor at all. Like, people need to understand that if I'm saying that she's not the number one pound for pound, she's still an absolute certified all-time great, legend, Hall of Famer, whatever you want to call it, for just a fantastic fighter. That's what she is. Chantel Cameron, I guess, had every advantage in the styles, but loves Katie Taylor, but she had every advantage in that fight also. I think the knockdown in the first round was a call that could have gone either way. The 98-9, I did think Katie won. I thought she won 6-4. I thought the 98-92 scorecard was kind of crazy too. I thought she got away with a lot of holding later on in the fight. It's a fight that if it was a 12 rounds, 3-minute round style with a different referee, I kind of wonder how it would play out. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a 12-by-3. It was a 10-by-2 format, and she did what she had to do to get the win. I'm always a big person on that, saying even if it's not the most exciting way, clearly her holding on at the end, that was her best path to victory at that point. So I give her all the credit in the world. I picked Chantel Cameron, so I want to keep that same energy and give Katie all the props in the world, because I did not see this one coming. I thought Chantel was gonna win again and win wider this time.
Yeah, and for me, I think I hopped on your guys' show and I picked Katie Taylor because she's Katie Taylor. And that's what I said. Like, there was no reason why she should beat Chantel. And I was like, man, she's Katie Taylor. She's going to win. Mm-hmm. And to me, her performance, I mean, this might be crazy and I'll probably change my mind in a week or two or a couple days, but she's the fighter of the year to me. Because, bro, to me, it's not about just, how many wins did you rack up or whatever, but she lost earlier in the year, right? And she's the older fighter that lost. I can't recall when an older fighter, kind of who everybody counts out on their way out, came back in the rematch and won.
When they're the smaller fighter too.
Yeah, at a bigger weight class. Like there was nobody picking her for a good reason, right? Like I picked her, but not for a good reason. Like, that's stupid. And I'm Felix. Maybe you can, or Jack. Y'all are more historians than me, but I can't think of when an older fighter.
Bernard Hopkins is the only one.
What's that?
Bernard Hopkins is the only one I could think of.
When he beat.
Did he lose to somebody and then beat him in a rematch when he was older? I'm trying to think about it. Jean Pascal. Even though the first fight was controversial, he took that L and then he went back and got that rematch, and that's when he made history as the oldest world champion or whatever. But I think that's the only one I can think of. Mm-hmm.
Good call. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't really see that, right? Like, if anything, the older fighter wins the first fight and then they lose the rematch, right? Like we seen Barrera beat Pacquiao. We seen Morales beat Pacquiao. Or I don't know if Barrera beat Pacquiao, but whatever. Like, it usually doesn't happen that way. And I thought this was kind of Katie Taylor going out, and for her to take the rematch, to me, was kind of crazy. And for her to win, I think that's kind of the most impressive performance of the year. And people say that, that knockdown in the first round, if you look at where the ref was, he was kind of on the opposite side. You could, and you're looking at what happened, you could easily kind of see him thinking that was a trip. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, but give her the knockdown. If you look at the punch stat numbers, like, Katie Taylor outlanded her, I think, like 8 of the 10 rounds, right? And it's pro boxing where it's not just how many punches you land, but if someone's out landing in 8 of the 10 rounds or whatever, like to me, there's no controversy. Katie Taylor won that fight, and what she did was special. So
yeah. I think it's the kind of fight where if you want to say, okay, Chantel might have squeaked it out or it was a draw, that's cool. But it's the kind of fight where you got to be okay with the decision still going Katie's way for sure. And there's only one other fighter I can think of that had, I think when Muhammad Ali lost to Leon Spinks, he then came back and won the rematch. But we're talking about Bernard Hopkins and Muhammad Ali are the only other two people we can think off the top of the dome. So,
and it doesn't get much greater than that, really.
No, exactly. And even going to the knockdown, it didn't have an effect on the scoring. I do wonder that it is. You brought up a good point with the referee, even with judges. A lot of times we get on judges, but depending on where the judges are sitting, they can see completely different fights. I know when Top Rank had the camera, when they showed all the judges' angles, like from one angle, it looked like a punch landed. From another angle, it looked like the punch completely missed. So it's so hard like that. I just wonder if it was the opposite roles. Let's say if Katie Taylor had knocked down Chantel Cameron, I don't know if Chantel would have got the benefit of the doubt, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day because Katie still won, and she really dogged it on me. And her, just the way the shoe shine combinations, I know she's still got that amateur style, but it works for her. And those 10 2-minute rounds, man, that hand speed, those hooks she was throwing, she did everything that I didn't think she was going to be able to do, and all the credit in the world for that. That was special stuff.
Yeah, and it works. Like, I'm just saying, I don't think there was something, bad intentions going on where the ref is fixing this fight. Like, I think the ref was in a position where that looked like a trip. And, she was fighting in her hometown. So, every combination she threw, that crowd was going crazy. But shout out to Cameron for taking that fight. Right. But she knew what she was up against. And I don't think she had it played out in her mind the way it was going to go. Like, I don't think she would have thought Katie Taylor's going to get off on her like she did and landed those punches. So like I said, I don't think there was any controversy. I think Katie Taylor, that performance, where she's at in her career, and looking at the last fight, this could have been like, oh, this is the last, the last hurrah, whatever. And for her to win this fight, I think that really made it special. I also think, like, shoot, there's no issue bowing out on that, right? Where she's at her stage of the career, her age. If she were to bow out, man, I think she's a legend, like we said. So I do think, we saw, what was it, a couple weeks ago, where the 3-minute rounds in women's boxing. I think this fight showed why 2-minute rounds are so great, right? Like, almost women's boxing is a different sport, and I think we should just be able to accept that. And by being a different sport with 2-minute rounds, we get these crazy paces that Katie Taylor could put on, right? Like, if this is a 3-minute round, like, we're not going to get that pace. We're not going to get this type of fight at all. So, I'm fine with 2-minute rounds. And I know a lot of the women, or at least some of the women, want 3-minute rounds. It's boxing. It's just boxing. Nah, man, women's boxing is a different sport, and it's also a great sport, or it can be a great sport, as Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron showed.
And one thing I wanted to, throw out there to you guys is, I know Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano they were talking about having a rematch. Once Taylor took that L, I remember seeing Amanda saying she doesn't think that fight's going to happen now. It's just pushing too many things back timeline-wise and whatnot. Now with this past weekend, this past performance, and as you mentioned, this stage of her career, do you guys think they'd do it again?
It'll be interesting. I wonder. I would love to see either the trilogy with Cameron or the rematch with Serrano. I think if you're Katie's team, I think you go the route of the rematch with Serrano. I think that's probably, they're both huge fights, but I think that's even a bigger money fight just because the first fight was so huge. And I think that's a fight where she's then fighting Amanda, who's moving up in weight. And I think as awesome as Katie Taylor was, maybe Katie Taylor could prove me wrong and do it again. But I think if her and Chantel have a third fight, I think that's when you might see, well, she's then 6 months or 8 months older again. And Chantel can look back and say, okay, I could have used the jab a bit more. And then just all those things maybe wear Katie down a bit, not allow her to do all those kind of things. So I'd be cool with either one of them. I think if there was going to be one, I think the Serrano one is the fight that I think she's then the bigger girl in that matchup, and I think it's a bigger commercial fight. So I think that's what it should be. But shoot, bro, if they make either one of those fights, like Ray said, or if she bows out and just walks into the Hall of Fame, bro, I'm cool with whatever she wants to do. She's earned the right to do whatever the hell she wants.
So where was this fight at, Jack? 140?
This fight, yeah, 140.
Me, bro, I think maybe it's just me being a doubter again, but I think Katie really left everything in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And to lose that last fight and then to come back, like we talked about, against the bigger woman and to win that fight, I don't think she has anything left to prove. I know Eddie Hearn kept mentioning, is it Croke Park? That's where stadium. Hey, man, I why not fight someone like a Michaela Mayer, right? I think she's campaigning at 47.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a whole lot easier fight than Serrano or Cameron. Even though she's bigger, I feel like it's an easier fight. I would have no problem with her going out on something like that. I don't think she needs to put herself through a Serrano or Cameron fight again. I think she's proved everything. So why not try to go up and grab another belt? Right, like because Mayer's fighting Jonas, is that right?
Yeah, which that's a pretty solid fight too. Yeah, Natasha Jonas.
I would expect Mayer to win, but man, Katie Taylor's done enough. If her only goal is to fight in Croke Park, I don't think she has to do it against Cameron or Serrano.
No, hell, she could roll out Chris Cyborg and sell that place out. Like she could fight anybody. They could pull out somebody from a bar and she could sell out.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't be mad at. I wouldn't be mad at it at all. And kind of what we said to begin the conversation, I don't put Katie Taylor as pound for pound number one. I don't think Katie Taylor is currently the best woman fighter in the world. I think I kind of hold her higher than that, right? I think she's a legend. I think she did something unexpected, bigger than just being the most skillful. So shout out to her. And like I said, man, I'll probably change my mind, but right now she's my fighter of the year for that performance and for being able to come back from a loss and get that win. And that win meaning so much. She's now undisputed in 2 weight classes at the same time. Like, has that been done? You know, I don't.
Not at the same time. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. Right? Like they've been undisputed in 2, like Crawford and I guess maybe Teofimo, but there's kind of arguments both ways. But at the same time, like she could defend undisputed titles in 2 weight classes right now. That's crazy.
With both the ring titles, she legitimately has 10 actual world titles to her name right at this moment, which is crazy. 10 titles.
100%.
That's nuts. That's nuts. I think the only time another undisputed, I don't even think it was undisputed. I think it was just WBC, was when Sugar Ray Leonard took it. It was like he picked up the super middleweight and the light heavyweight.
Danny Lalonde. Yep.
Yeah, but I don't think that was undisputed. That was just the WBC.
Yeah, and maybe way back when, especially in like the 3 or 4 belt era, I don't think it's ever happened. I could be wrong.
Fought for that belt. He fought for him at the same time.
Yeah,
It was the super middleweight, maybe light heavyweight, but they were under the light heavyweight, but as super middleweight where you could fight for both. Like what Katie Taylor has done. And granted, the talent level is all different, but that's another argument. But she's conquered 2 weight classes. Undisputed.
Right. Facts. Well, I think that's about it, fellas. We had a great show, man.
But real quick, I know we got Nibs in here saying he says she should have lost that last fight. Am I the only one who watched it? Now, I think there's an argument for that too, but I think it's 6-4 either way, 5-5. But I did still lean, and I'm someone who I picked Chantel. I bet on Chantel, but I did still have Katie Taylor winning 6-4. I thought a lot of the shoe shine combinations, depending on if you thought some of them weren't as effective, maybe I could see how you could score for Chantel. But close competitive fight. But I do think, and I'm someone who I thought the Serrano fight was a draw. I thought she's had some close fights before, but I thought she just barely did enough to nick this fight out.
I thought she did enough, man. And I think the complaint would be the holding. The ref's gonna allow it. Like, why is she gonna stop? You know, it's like unless she's getting warnings. Or maybe even if the crowd was booing, the crowd wasn't booing at all.
No, they're not going to boo anything she does.
She's not. She doesn't know what the audience watching on TV is thinking. Like she's gonna have a game plan, right? And that's not going to change until something changes that. So, like I said, I hate going to the punch stat numbers because this is pro boxing where a bigger punch should count more. But when the punch stats are showing that she landed more in, I think 7 or 8 rounds, like, bro, where's the controversy? Like she outlanded her.
Yeah. And I'm someone who loves to say controversy, this and that. And even with the knockdown, the holding, and like we said, the holding, if we were on that situation, you're damn right we're going to try to hold on and do what we can to win that fight. So we're all just saying, for me, I would have maybe wanted the ref to kind of be more vocal about it a bit. But at the end of the day, she did what she had to do to win. And anytime a fighter does whatever they have to do to win, I got no problem with that. That's what they're in there.
Until you get a warning, right? Like, if she's not getting a warning, then why is she going to change anything that she's doing that's working? Right, like
exactly.
that's on the Cameron to, hey, how are you going to negate what she's doing? You know, so hey, shout out to Katie Taylor, man. I think what she did was historic.
Yeah, Felix, I know you said we were wrapping up. Do we want to spend just like 2 seconds on the Ryan Garcia return really quick? Literally like
that's
2 seconds.
That's because that's what I was about to do. I was going to get into that, but I'll let you take it away.
Hey, but the big news, old grandpa. What's his name?
Barossa.
Barossa
fights off now.
Man, that's kind of, I was kind of hyped for that. Like I wanted to see how it played out, right? Like after his success against Rolly, wanted to see how it's played out. I think it's a lot of BS. Like how does Davies find out what he was just about to travel? Like,
yeah, so that's the one thing I got a problem with in boxing, bro. Can they get these visa things figured out ahead of time? Bro, and I understand travel is hard from different countries, but bro, how many times do we have to lose guys in co-main events, main events, title fights, or even undercard fights just because they can't get a visa in time? Like, it just aggravates me. And it's easy for me to say here because I'm not in charge of any of that stuff, but like, you'd seem like it would be something that you want to cross your T's, dot your I's, and do all those things and make sure that you don't have something like this happen legitimately the week of the fight. So that's just the one thing I have. It always aggravates me when I see the visa things.
Maybe I'm a negative person, Jack, but they knew about that weeks ago. You don't find out about that the week of the fight, right? Like when he's traveling overseas, you're gonna tell me this is Wednesday and they just found out about this and we got to stop this fight. Like, come on, man. Like, boxing fans, yeah, we're dumb. I'm dumb. I'm not that dumb. Like, you know, I think it's a thing where that was kind of the selling point maybe of this card, right? Like, it's a legit, at least for like true hardcore boxing fans. Like, yeah, we want to see how this plays out for interim title. And it's kind of, to me, kind of disrespectful to say like, oh, visa issue, sorry. Be better than that. Give me something better than that. But that was just the co-main. The main is going on, and talk about it.
What do you know about his opponent? I don't know anything about him, to be honest.
Yeah. Oscar Duarte. I've seen him fight a few times. I will say it's a kind of a high risk, low reward fight for Ryan coming off the knockout. I mean, I do expect him to win, but Duarte, he comes forward, he applies pressure, and he can punch too. So I think anytime you get a guy coming off a knockout loss, you really don't want to put him in with the pressure fighter who can punch. It's kind of a bad recipe. But he squares up a little bit too. I think he's been open for hooks and stuff like that. So I just think that Ryan will eventually walk him into a left hook and probably stop him somewhere in those mid rounds. But it's weird because they're also not promoting this fight a lot, but I think it's a better fight than it's kind of being treated as just a tune-up against a random guy. And it's not a huge name guy, but it's a tough style matchup that I think still favors Ryan because he'll be able to, the aggressive guys that come forward at him, he's always done good. He'll kind of step back and just kind of whip that hook in there and probably get him. But you got to wonder how he comes back from the Tank fight. And if Oscar Duarte is able to close that distance, I think it could definitely become a tricky fight.
Yeah, I don't think Ryan's lost anything. I mean, he's young as hell. I think as far as like physically and whatnot, I don't think he's lost anything mentally. We'll see where his confidence level is. Even then, I don't think he's taken too much of a hit. I think he knew what it was with Tank. And I think that, you know, when we talk about self-awareness, I think Ryan is self-aware of kind of at least where he is. I think he might say he's higher skill-wise than what he is. He probably believes he's the best in the world. or says it, but I think he's aware of what's going on in there, and I think he's probably gonna put on a good performance to try to get back in the light. You know what I mean? He wants to put on something. The thing I like about Ryan is he wants to be out there. He wants to fight. He looks and he acts, and he has this reputation of being like a soft dude and whatnot, but he really does. At the end of the day, he does want to fight the best fighters out there, and he is trying to make it happen.
Yeah, and I feel like Ryan has faced adversity, even being knocked down, even in the Tank fight, right? I mean, we could go back before that, but even the Tank fight, that first knockdown, he came back and was still looking pretty good. So I expect him to be in there, and thinking if he's at his best, he's gonna win. But I think he's in a real fight, right? Like, probably a tougher fight than most would be in for a comeback fight. I saw Virgil Ortiz talking, and he said he sparred both, and even he was like, "Yo, if Duarte gets through a few rounds, it's gonna be interesting, like, because he hits hard, and he kind of goes at it." So, shout out to Ryan for taking this fight. I think obviously he could have had an easier fight. And he's in there against someone who could punch, and with someone that just got knocked out, you wouldn't really expect that, right? Like usually you get knocked out, you come back fight, and you're fighting a guy with
20 wins and 2 knockouts.
20, yeah, and you're like, oh, okay. So shout out to Ryan Garcia, but it is a weird promotion. Like I just saw him today, like before we hopped on here, and he was going at Bernard Hopkins, right? Because Bernard Hopkins said he's going to watch this fight and determine what happens with Ryan Garcia's career. And Ryan Garcia is like, bro, you're going to determine what? Like I'm going to decide. And he's going at his promoter, which he's kind of been going at his promoter since that Tank fight. So it's a weird dynamic. Like, are they rooting against him? Are they putting him in there against someone to beat him? And Ryan's like, no, I'm still going to beat that guy. I don't know what that contract's like, but that's a weird dynamic, man.
It is.
And props for Ryan for stepping in there with someone that he could lose to. I'm not picking him to lose, but he's definitely in there with someone he could lose to. And we do see fights where there are guys that they're in the ring with guys that they would never lose to. Ryan Garcia could lose to this guy. And props for him to taking it, and I'm gonna be tuned in. I was a little hype for the co-main, but I'll still watch Ryan Garcia, and I'm curious. All the names we mentioned at 140, because what he brings to the sport, he's a player. He's a player in that weight class for sure.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how the fight plays out, and Ryan's. It's funny because I feel like at one point he was definitely overrated a bit, but I think he's the kind of guy where he's either really overrated or really underrated. And I think he's pretty underrated right now still too. I mean, I never thought he was going to beat Tank Davis. I just thought that the counterpunching in Tank was always going to have the IQ and be too smart. But people talking like Ryan is just like some Instagram guy out here who's not like, he's still a real fighter at the end of the day. To get off the canvas against Luke Campbell and knock Luke Campbell out, those are all real things. Javier Fortuna, it wasn't Fortuna at his best. He was at a higher weight. He still knocked him out and beat him better than anybody's beat him. Oscar Duarte is a real fighter. Like you were saying, I mean, it's almost like Golden Boy saying, okay, we want to see exactly what we have right now. We're going to put you in tough enough where you could lose, but also the casual fans, even if you win, are going to say, well, you just beat a guy we never heard of. So it's kind of like a lose-lose for Ryan too. It's like they're setting him up basically. So for that, I hope Ryan does have a dynamite performance, but the whole dynamic is weird. And I wonder how long that this Golden Boy relationship can even keep going like this. Cause you saw with Canelo, it's like with him and Oscar, once it soured a bit, it completely fell apart. It doesn't seem like Oscar's able to kind of mend those relationships once they break a little bit too. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and Ryan Garcia is a fighter, right? Like at the end of the day, like this weekend, you love big boxing weekends because every boxer's there and they all want to talk. And I saw an interview with Teofimo, and he said, "Oh, I turned down a Ryan fight." Like he said, he turned down the offer. Maybe the offer was really bad, and I'm pretty sure that's why he turned it down. It was probably low money. But for Ryan Garcia to be even offering
I know.
Teofimo Lopez
The
a
champion.
fight, that shows you this dude's for real, right? Like he wants to fight. Like so
The thing I
Ryan
like about
walks that line, man. He walks that line great. And but at the end of the day, you gotta have the performances to back it up. And is it a real fight? And we'll see what we get.
The thing I like about it too is that he's the star. He don't need the title belt, and he's gonna be the A side for most of his fights, unless it's against Tank Davis or somebody like that, who's larger than life. But Ryan he's very much got that Jake Paul thing, where Jake Paul don't need anything else. He's got his name, and he's bringing that, and that's what Ryan's bringing. He's got his name, he's got his pedigree, and he's got his fan base. He doesn't need a world title yet. I know he wants one. He's gonna get one eventually, but he's still gonna be the A side even without it.
Yeah, and I think the plan was for them. They were gonna. I think there's a clear path for him to get a world title too, is because Barroso and O'Hara Davies were supposed to be the co-main event for like the interim WBA title because Rolly's hurt right now. I think what they would have done is Ryan fights the winner of that. Ryan probably beats that person. Then you have the fight we've all been waiting for, Rolly and Ryan for a real belt at 140. So I think that was the plan. Now that obviously that fight's postponed, I want to see how quickly that fight gets made. Does that mess up the timelines at all? But it seems like whenever you have a main event of a guy in a weight class and the co-main event's the same weight class, it seems like they're matching those guys together. And especially with the title being on the line, it seemed like, I'm sure that's what the plan was.
Yeah, you can always kind of see the writing on the wall with stuff like that.
But I mean, Ryan has built himself in a position where, let's say Regis and Devin, whoever wins that fight, bro, they're gonna fight Ryan Garcia, right? Like that's the biggest fight for them there.
Yeah.
Tank's already done it. Ryan's, the cash cow term gets thrown out, but at 140, that's Ryan Garcia, whether you like him or not. And he seems to be a guy that wants to fight, right? Like he fought Tank Davis with, from all intents and purposes, it looked like Oscar and Bernard and all of Golden Boy were saying, don't fight him. Like Ryan kind of forced that fight. So, Ryan will fight the best, right? I don't think he has, if he fought Tank, he's not going to be worried to fight
anybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's going to get all those fights too. You've even seen Eddie Hearn's already been saying, "Oh, if Devin Haney wins, I'd like to make the Ryan Garcia fight." Just those guys know how big of a name he is, and I think that we will see those fights because one, he's willing to take those fights, and two, those other guys, the Devins, the Teofimos, even the Regises, those guys look at him as still being vulnerable, and they think they could take advantage too. So when you have both sides like that are willing to take the fight, I think that means that we'll be able to see him with any of those guys too. And
you got Rolly, one of the best social media personalities. Like, bro, him and Ryan,
that's gonna be great.
That's crazy because that's not like obviously the most skillful fight, but bro, that might be the one most entertaining fight you could make.
Yeah. For all the guys that we talk about.
Ring and even inside the ring, right? Like their styles, I feel like mesh.
No, it would be a good fight. And it's funny we talk about for all the guys who can't get their hands on a title, that would be for a real title in a loaded division. Right. I like Rolly. I like him a lot. I enjoy him a lot. But there's probably 15, maybe 20 guys that would have a good shot at beating him in this division. But I get credit. He's got the belt right now. So, but it is funny. This division is stacked.
And let's not get it twisted. To circle back real quick, Matias washes both of them.
Yeah. They could fight those good old 2-on-1 sparring sessions. I think you could put both of them in there. He'll probably break them both down, I'm sure. Yeah. But that shows the levels thing that they both have world titles. But come on now. We know how it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's it now, fellas. We hell of a show. It was definitely fun with chopping up with y'all again. Any last comments y'all got?
Nah, I mean, just Catch and Counter might be back Friday, might not, but either way, tune into us, and we appreciate all you guys. I know for you guys, that most of you guys are watching us, but go support those guys on Monday too. They got a good thing going. But no, in all seriousness, I do like these shows like this. It's pretty cool. So got some big fights coming forward too. So I hope that we're able to do some more of these. I know we're gonna do the end of the year awards, kind of in the same kind of setting. I think that make for some good content.
Yeah, for sure. Just to kind of give, I guess, some of the people that are still listening, if you made it this far, for the rest of the year, obviously we still got the Haney and Prograis fight. There's a couple other sprinkled here and there, Morale, whatever. We'll be covering those, but we'll be doing a lot of year-end awards on our shows on both Friday night and Monday nights. We got the Fight Life coming out this weekend with Joseph Rivas, and then in December, Fight Life with Brianna Sanchez is going to be released. Also, shout out to Brianna Sanchez. Happy birthday. It's her birthday today, too. 2-0, fighter out of Tucson. So shout out to her. That's coming out next month. And other than that, I think those are the two big things that we've got going on for the rest of this year, unless you guys got any other tidbits to throw in there too.
I mean, I'll let Ray do his thing, but I mean, we got that Saudi card too. Don't forget about that, December 23rd too. So that'll be we got some big shows going on for that.
We might have a knockout of the year on that court. On that card.
That was the good point that Dakota had brought up when he mentioned it too. All the heavyweights on there, without a doubt.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, we're getting close to the end of the year. If you have an opinion on the fight of the year, fighter, all of that, win me over, right? Because it's a long year. You forget a lot of stuff. So throw it in there and have us look at it. We're gonna come in here and we're gonna pick our winners. Like I said, my fighter of the year is Katie Taylor. Prove me different, guys.
We'll be talking about that Monday, I'm pretty sure. But hey, that's it for the night, man. Appreciate y'all again, and then we'll catch you on the next show. Peace.